right, thank you for staying with Daybreak, State of the Nation. We talk about matters, politics, and everything in between there. We're going to combine these issues, why there's minority senators are unhappy, and the Kenya Kwanza legislators looking to scuttle the NADCO report. Let's combine those two issues as we continue. And I'll start with you, Eddie. You held a press conference very recently. Why are the minority senators unhappy? What's going on?
Well, the minority senators have been concerned about two things. One is the general running of the House. I think that we did a press statement about how the House has been run in an unbiased way, in our humble view, in the sense that there has been an element of stifling of debate, especially by the speaker's panel, and especially the panel, the members of the panel that are from the government side, to the extent that there is, the Article 96 of the Constitution, Trevor, requires that when we get into that house, even if we are fewer in number, that we cannot be able to pass some of these things. The first thing that the Constitution requires of us is that we must consider everything, every bill that is brought in that house, or every motion or every statement. Number two, we must debate those bills that are brought into that house. And then number three, we must approve them. So the problem that the minority side has been having is that there is stifling of debates, and there is no proper consideration of issues to the extent that they can be able to be addressed. And sometimes if you attempt to insist on the standing orders that can be able to enable you be able to debate, be able to consider issues that are brought in the floor of the House, then you get into the wrong side of the speaker's panel. And we had a number of incidents that we have cited. And then we have also seen where minority, when we want to make some major decisions, then we are gagged by the speaker's desk. For instance, there was an issue of changing committees that was communicated in May last year to the speaker through our leaders. And the standing orders require that the only thing that is supposed to be done when the minority side or even the majority side is making any changes is that you communicate it to the speaker, and then the speaker communicates the same communication to the House as the changes that you've made. Since May, those changes have not been made. Yeah. There are a number of letters that the minority side, especially our leaders, have written in terms of dissenting some of the decisions that the speakers have made in the House, yeah, that were never responded to. Okay. I think actually yesterday, because of that protest, the speaker responded some of this yesterday and made some determination.
So then it was just a matter of procedure rather than...
It was a matter of procedure. It's a matter of deliberate stifling of both debate and contribution in the House. Because sometimes there is, allowed frivolous point of orders, even when people are making contribution from the side of minority and the other. But then there's a larger question, which is the question of what do we as a House collectively represent for the people of Kenya? And that has been manifested in the kind of bills that have come in the House, yeah, that we as minority feel very strongly that those bills offend devolution and offend the Constitution. In that House, we have had a serious fight on bills to do with healthcare. I think that Senator Ososi had it very rough when we were in Turkana, yeah, when he was trying to make some major amendments, yeah, to the community health promoters bill that was brought in, and it was very scathing for him. He went through a very excruciating pain to even try and shepherd some of those bills to make sure that community health function, yeah, could remain in the county. Okay. We have seen the bill on water being pushed down the throats of people in the Senate against the will of the people and, yeah, what we care about. You see now the issue of the housing bill is coming in, and it's a very contentious issue. Yeah. So those bills that offend devolution have been very, very serious point of departure between minority and majority. And the last one, Trevor, yeah, is when we were passing DORA last year. We as a minority felt like there had to be a consideration, yeah, of a scientific approach to what money we should be able to give the people. And I sit in the Finance and Budget Committee, and sometimes we don't agree with CRA. That is the Commission on Revenue Allocation. We sometimes don't agree with all the stakeholders that bring their points. But as a committee of the Senate, we sit in a way that we do our own practical scientific measure, because we get what the Treasury has proposed as what should go to the counties. Even now, we've just passed a BPS that we have tried to input what the money that should go to the county should look like, given that we've checked on all those parameters.
Okay.
And then you go to the House with the same committee that you are in. Imagine you have gone to the House and you are in a committee where a majority of members are from the government side and you are minority, and they have signed to that which you have scientifically come up with, that this is the money that should go to the counties, that was 407. Then they are whipped against their own report to the House, and then vote against money to go to the counties. Okay. So these things have been very contentious, in the sense that there is no any other avenue apart from informal infrastructure in the Senate whereby you can be able to vent about these things. Okay. And there's got a very big animosity in the Senate with regards to how do we defend devolution and how do we allow proper debates to go on in the House. Okay.
Osotsi, what is the main bone of contention here? The reason why I want to link these two is because, of course, Owen and Yusuf don't sit in the Senate, but they'll talk about this because there's a state capture of the legislature arm, because there's more that comes out of it. But let's hear your view first. What is the main bone of contention?
Well, I think my colleague Eddie has expounded on all the issues. Yeah. But the most important one is that I think there's Azimio side. Their reaction this week, it is something that has been ongoing for some time. That we are in a situation where we are looking at Parliament now gradually being taken over by the executive. The legislators, and not just in the Senate, even in the National Assembly. And I'm happy my good friend Baya is here, who is the Deputy Majority Leader in the National Assembly. Parliament exists to protect the interests of Kenyans. They are representative of the people, because not all Kenyans can sit in one place and make decisions. They have to be represented by the people, by some people elected, and that is Parliament. If we have a situation where, as an elected legislator, you deviate from the role of representing your people and start representing other interests, for example, representing the interests of the president or your party leader, then you have failed in your role as a legislator. So what is happening in Senate, for instance, is that we are gradually seeing a trend where the legislators, especially on the Kenya Kwanza side, are just there to rubber stamp anything that comes their way from the executive. Even if it has issues, they are ready to rubber stamp and say, this is our government, this is in our manifesto, whether it's unconstitutional or not, we are passing it. And Senate exists as per the Article 96 of the Constitution, which requires Senate to protect counties and protect devolution. Now, when we have a scenario where we have bills coming your way and they are clearly anti-devolution, as a good senator who is elected by the people, I mean, you need to have a voice over it and say, no, we cannot pass this. But we have a situation where we raise concerns, those concerns are ignored because the other sides have more numbers than us. They are whipped.
But are you simply being unreasonable? Because, majority will always have their way, minority will have their say. So just because you've been defeated by numbers doesn't mean that you're leaning towards the executive.
Trevor, majority have their way. But let them have their way in a constitutional manner, not unconstitutional manner. We cannot pass bad laws just because we are a majority. No.
But who decides they're bad laws? Because the majority has already decided.
Bad laws.
Minority has a problem, you state your issues and then it is passed.
If I borrow just to strengthen one word on what you have said, even the notion that the Senate has got majority absolutely by the government side came from the problem that resources is trying to address. And I hope that as we advance through this year and next year, because now as a country we are settling in a place where we can be able to dialogue and have a conversation, even the president will see the impact of this.
Okay.
The fact that when we got into the Senate, the Azimio side had 23 absolute numbers in terms of senators. And the government side had 24 senators. And because of what Senator Sossi is saying, that if you get into parliament and you get compromised by the executive, then you derelict your duty. Jubilee senators and a few UDM senators were compromised to join the government side, which therefore meant that the executive basically, not even invisibly, visibly compromised the entire parliament so that it was never an absolute majority in the problem that Sossi was talking about.
So you finish your thoughts, then
maybe let me finish my thoughts. Let me give you specific examples on that. I think I was watching Citizen a few days back, where two members of parliament from Murang'a,
Gatanga and Kandara,
were telling people not to pay taxes, the farm produced taxes. And the same people are the ones who passed the finance bill. When everyone was crying about the finance bill, when the finance bill went through public participation and people said no, and then they are the same ones who went and started telling people not to pay taxes. What has changed? What has changed? That is a scenario that those MPs did not vote for that finance bill because they supported it. They voted it because they were whipped to support it.
Okay.
And it was very clear. Number two, what Eddie has said. Senate, our role as senators is to ensure that we approve money to our counties and then do oversight over those funds. Where we have a scenario where you have a committee. A committee is a very important organ of parliament. Giving a report, the report is approved by all the members, say that we want to give counties 407 billion shillings. And then when you come on the floor, you reject your own report and give counties less money, 385 billion shillings. You are being whipped to give less money to counties, and yet our process has gone through public participation and said counties should get 407 billion.
Okay.
That is a problem.
All right.
Now, the same committee, yesterday we passed the PPS, where the national government is saying we want to give counties 391 billion shillings. And the committee said we will give them 415.9 billion shillings. And we have passed the report. But now when we get to a stage where we want to approve DORA, they will now come and be whipped to go for the lower amount, which is 391 billion shillings. This is very frustrating. Trevor, lastly, public participation is a very key constitutional value. If you have a situation where we have bills that are taken to public participation, Kenyans give their views about the bill, and the bill is largely rejected by the public. For example, the housing bill, the finance bill, they were rejected by the public. But when they come to the House, the legislators completely ignore what the public said and pass as it is. Then we have a problem.
Let me bring in Owen. Owen, you're the deputy majority leader on this, of course, on the National Assembly side, not the Senate. But you've heard what their concerns are. There's a bigger question of whether the legislature has been captured by the executive. This is a question that I've never gotten an answer from members of parliament. There's always diversion.
Maybe before he comes in, the conduct of the speakers also. Speakers, once you are elected as a speaker of any house,
should be
any house, that is a standard globally, you cease to play politics, local politics. And when you sit on that seat, you are not Kenya Kwanza, you are not Azimio.
You become a neutral.
You become neutral, and you become, you are led by the standing orders and the doctrines of parliament. But when you have a speaker who, when he sits there, is putting on a green or an orange or a black, then we have a problem. And that's the problem we have in the two houses.
Yes, in both houses.
Trevor, I want to say this. You see, there's a principle, the core principle of democracy. Core principles of democracy is why we have parliament.
Yeah.
It's why we have parliament. And democracy says that there are majority and there are minority. In the presidential system that we have today in this country, we have a minority that is what you would call in the previous system opposition. Now, then you have a majority which is actually, as we are right now set in the parliament today, the majority is actually the parties that won the election on the basis of the party that is in power. That should be the first principle that authority and aid need to look at. So what is the role of...
let me have a contrary view.
Let me come to my...
Let me correct you.
Write it down. I'll give
yes.
you a response.
So that is how Parliament is configured today. The majority and the minority. In a pure presidential system, probably authority would say, okay, majority, you don't necessarily need to be in government. Yes, it's correct. But in the scene in Kenya, the scene that we have in Kenya, the majority is actually the party that has the government in power. So, and then I want to go to committees. Why is it that committees are formed in such a way that the majority party has more members in a committee than the minority? Usually that is how it is. You cannot have the same numbers. Usually the party in government will have more members in a committee than the minority. Yeah. You know, if it is 15 people, then probably the majority party will have 8 and the other one will have 7. What does that tell you? It tells you government will have its way because they have more members. So what is the position of members from the government party when they sit in a committee? They will sit in a committee and scrutinize. How I scrutinize the law or something that comes to the committee will be different from how AID scrutinizes it. Because already Parliament and committees in Parliament are configured that way, that this is a government bill that has come. If it is a government bill, the leader of majority will look at it, and he is a leader of majority of which members? Of the members of government. So he will look at it, read it, and say, this is what I think, because a lot of the bills come via the leaders of majority. So if I am the deputy leader of majority and a bill has come to Parliament and it must be passed, first I look at it as Owen Bayer. I look at it as Owen Bayer first. Then secondly, I will look at it as Owen Bayer, the deputy leader of majority. Then I will also look at it as Owen Bayer, member of the UDA party. So I will look at it from those 3 prisms.
Biased or not.
Okay, so I already have a bias because of the tags that I carry. So for them to say that committee members that come into committees by virtue of being in government, they will come and look at things and skew it into government, what do you want them to do?
Okay.
What do you want them to do? Of course, let me finish. Of course, we have an obligation to make good law for the country, good laws. And I will make my contribution as Owen Bayer and say, no, I think this is not good law. And I will push for amendments. Yeah. I have pushed for my amendments in government bills, like the land laws that came into Parliament and they were sponsored by my majority leader. Yeah. And I looked at them and I went to majority leader. I said, okay, this is a law that has come from the executive. It actually has your name and your signature. Yeah. But I think we have issues here and here. And he said, told me, point to me the issues. And I pointed to him the issues and he said, I think you are right, Owen, on these things. I think we need to rework this law. Yeah. Okay.
But are there some of your members who don't necessarily read through this? And
I want to tell you this: the people who do not read, the people who do not.
And Kandara MPs rejected the tax levied on farmers. In fact, they helped the farmers chase away KRA officers to sensitize them on what e-teams was all about, and they're all supposed to be there by March 1st.
I want to tell you this: the issue of members not reading law is not a preserve of government MPs or the majority. Even members of the opposition do not read. In fact, it is worse for them because, one, they do not read, and then they do not even come to the chamber to debate. The only thing is, and You know, Sosi was my friend. Sosi was my friend in the National Assembly, and I want to tell you this.
Yeah.
You see, when a law...
But I used to be in the chamber.
Yes, all the time. And you know, he was a very good legislator.
And I was in the chambers all the time.
Yeah. He was a very good legislator in the National Assembly, and he actually moved a lot of amendments.
Yeah.
You know, third reading, Sosi would sit there throughout and ensure that, you know, law is made in third reading.
Yeah.
It's the committee of the whole. And in the committee of the whole, I want you to one day watch when we have committee of the whole in Parliament. And you'll tell me, committee of the whole, we used to give committee of the whole 10 members or 20 members.
So the rest are out.
The rest are out. And today, if you watch National Assembly, you'll see when it comes to the committee of the whole, sometimes I ask, where are the members who would give us an alternative voice on the law? They're not there. Because I will look at the prism from the majority. Then I say, probably if Sosi was sitting on the other side, he would have said, oh, and you know, we meet at the table and say, why don't we change this? Why don't we agree on this? And my colleague here will tell you. You do a lot of horse trading during third reading. But today, if you go to the National Assembly today, during that time when today we have committee of the whole, I think 2. Check what you will see.
So is that an incompetence on the legislators or a people?
It is how it is. Now I'll come back to the I'll come back to the other issue of whipping.
Yeah.
Whipping. The reason why a whip, the chief whip, is sponsored by government, he has a car, he has an office, he has staff, he has everything, is because all those are supposed to enable him to do his job. On the other side, we also have even the whip of the minority. Has a government car, has government officers, has everything that the chief whip has. His role is to look at it. He has researchers, then call his members and say, you are going into this committee, we have looked at this law, we think there are issues here and here and here. And therefore, when you go to your committee, please examine these things. They don't do that.
Okay.
Okay. We do it effectively.
Okay.
When there is law that is coming, when there's law that is coming into the House, I will read it, my researchers will give me information, and I will come to the chamber, or I'll call members from that committee to my office and tell them, look, this law is coming, this we want changed, this we want approved, this and this and this, and I will give rationale. Okay. And I will definitely whip my members, and that is why the word whipping is in the standing orders. And that is why we have a whip who is supposed to give direction. You know, when they say Parliament has been state captured, I tell you it is hogwash. Because you have a whip who is paid, actually 2, who is supposed to align the thinking of the minority in the party manifesto. Okay. And we have a whip on the other side who is supposed to whip the members of the government in a certain way of thinking. Now, when you are a member of Parliament and you go in public after having voted for a bill in Parliament and you said yes, and you are actually a lawyer yourself, one of the people who think that they're big lawyers, and then you come, I pass that law, and then you go and tell your people to chase away KRA officers, you are not worth the seat of becoming an MP. You should actually quit. Because you passed the law, you should have read it. You are a member of Parliament, you are a lawyer, you should have gone into the details, because usually in the law, the devil is in the details. If you did not pass the law, do not come and condemn KRA officers who want to do their duty on powers that you gave them. You know, another time I was coming from abroad and I went to the airport. And had carried some gifts for my family and all that. So I went to the airport during the time when there was a crackdown on what you are bringing in. Yeah. And they opened my suitcase and I said, it's okay, it's the law. They opened my suitcase and checked, and they found items there, and they said, now, Owen, you need to pay taxes. The first reaction I had was like, no, I cannot. But there was a gentleman there who told me, but you see, you are the guys who passed the law.
So
that
you
cannot. No, wait. He told me you're the one who passed the law, and you said that, you know, you any goods that you bring in above $500, you have to pay tax. And he said, this is it. I said, yeah. I actually passed that law. Yeah. Whether it is hitting me hard or what, I am ready and happy to pay. Yes.
So change your mind.
And I paid. Okay. I paid because I passed the law. Okay. Yes. So
the minority senators just crying wolf. That this really,
they're crying wolf,
is how the operation of Parliament should be. Majority will have their way, minority will have their say.
But Trevor, I
think they have a point. I think they have a point.
Yeah, they have a point.
If you look at our Constitution,
yeah,
Article number 1 of our Constitution says all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and should be exercised in accordance within the Constitution. And then it goes into number 2. The people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through the democratically elected representative. And then in 3, it clearly says where that power, sovereign power, is invested. And Parliament is number 1.
Yeah.
It's not the executive, it's not the judiciary. Article 3A says Parliament and the legislative assemblies in the county governments. Those are the ones that represent the people. And this is reinforced in Articles 94 and 95. So I think they represent the people. It doesn't matter which political party they came into that particular body. And I think it is important for that representation to be respected. All elected representatives are equal. They have equal mandate from the people, and there should be no political favoritism or interference in the work of that particular legislator. But unfortunately, there is a case. I agree fully that, of course, the majority will eventually determine the kind of legislation that will be passed there. But the Speaker absolutely has no role in that. The Speaker is a neutral, non-partisan character. His job is to create opportunities for a fairly and efficient parliamentary system to allow a fair balance and equity. And when the Speaker takes sides, then there's a serious problem.
Okay.
It's not the job of the Speaker to privilege a few over the majority. And now in our discussions in Parliament, you would see, either in the Senate or in Parliament, that there are few who are privileged.
Yeah.
And they dominate the debate in the House, the 2 houses.
And this bias you've seen.
Yes, of legislation.
Yeah.
That does not mean that there is state capture, but it simply means that there is a Speaker who is not orchestrating. He's the conductor.
Yeah.
He's not orchestrating that team, that group
Not
of
executing his duties.
Yes, properly, and it's not acceptable. It's unfortunate, and it's not acceptable. And I think I have served in. This is my 4th term.
Yeah.
In my 1st term, we had a Speaker called Marende, who came from the opposition, but in his conduct, in his behaviour, and the way he engaged members of Parliament, he got the respect of the parliamentarians. We worked very efficiently and very well because he respected his position and he respected the mandate of parliamentarians. But I think sometimes, as the members of Parliament are saying here in the Senate, there's a bit of a move to a particular position which may favour the government.
So there is some bias.
Yes, and that bias is not good for Parliament, because there is a growing lethargy in Parliament, resulting in poor attendance, chronic lack of quorum. You would find every other day.
They think their presence is irrelevant.
Exactly, and I think we need to move the pendulum back into the center.
Owen Bayer said something here that is very important, but I think that I want him to speak to his people, because he's beginning to make me believe that he's never in his constituency, and maybe doesn't understand what his people are going through. And I say this because even as a leader in the National Assembly, he must, in the same way his MPs that he whips in that particular assembly, have evicted KRA officials in their respective constituencies. He must encourage those constituents of those constituencies to evict those MPs immediately first, because they're the first cause of the problem. Because Owen Bayer talks about this Republican narrative of majority versus minority, and why minority must have their say and the majority must have their way in Parliament. I want Owen Bayer to tell his constituents whether he believes on the doctrine of separation of power first, or he believes in the power of majority in the House first. The reason why I'm saying this, Trevor, is very important. The way our parliamentary democracy is created, yes, in terms of sometimes controlling the workings of Parliament is important, But the primary role which my brother Yusuf here has talked about is very important. The idea that when you go to parliament, your first role is to be able to oversee and oversight the executive. And to some extent also, you technically oversight the judiciary. You know, this separation of power is so important because we as a country have walked a journey, Trevor, since independence. And maybe Yusuf is the one who has got gray hair here, but today doesn't have them. but you know, he will tell you that there used to be in this country a time when Parliament did not have a role in terms of dictating and defining what development looked like for the constituents of Owen Bayer, for the constituents of Eddie Okech, for the constituents of my brother Osotsi, and for the constituents of Yusuf. Reason being, we used to have an executive whereby things like even the budget making process that we are doing right now will be done in State House. Once it's done in State House, allocation is done on the basis of who respects the president, who obeys the president, who kneels to the president. To the extent that even Owen Bayer would say that even for you to get elected in your area, the provincial administration would be given order and say, so and so is going to be elected. How wonderful it is that we came up with a constitution that gives us as members of parliament a voice in the budget making process, a voice in the entire development process, so that if you've got an issue that affects your constituents, Owen Bayer, you should be able to talk about it in parliament and define it in parliament and not be, you know, over excited with this idea that whatever president says is law. And by the way, I've got nothing against the president of the day. Because, you know, he's a Kenyan. If today Raila Odinga was the president, he will be the president of Ruto as well. And we will treat him just as a Kenyan. But this idea of far overreaching effect of the executive power into parliament is something that Owen Bayer must yield on and agree that parliament ultimately must be able to scrutinize and be able to hold the executive to account, despite the fact that you find yourself in the minority side.
Okay.
Yes, I actually wanted to. I just wanted to emphasize the fact that there is absolutely nothing wrong for a member of parliament to change his position, even when he or she had voted for that particular legislation.
So you don't have a problem with the Gatanga and
It is important for them to
shifting.
Because the master, the boss, is not the president, it is not the speaker, it's not the majority party. It is the people who elected them.
They didn't listen to the people.
Taking sides with the people who voted for him is the most important thing, and fighting for them.
But why didn't they do it at the beginning?
So I fully agree, and ultimately I would be answerable to the people of Kamkunji. It doesn't really matter what else.
So have the people of Kamkunji told you the finance bill is...
If they disagree with it and it is hurting them now, I would side with them.
Even though you voted for it?
Even if I did vote for it. I think it is absolutely necessary to listen to the people. The people are the power.
So is this before or after you vote for the bill?
No, I didn't vote for the bill myself, but I supported certain aspects of the bill very strongly, like the housing levy, because of the fact that my constituency is full of slums, and we need to change that. We need to provide them with decent housing. So there are certain aspects of the legislation that I support, but it doesn't mean that if it is hurting my people, the people who voted for me, that I will continue to be supporting that particular type of legislation.
But the
and then on the issue,
because are we seeing hypocrisy here? Gatanga and Kandara MPs rejected the tax levied on farmers. In fact, they ejected KRA officials who were out on a sensitization.
Yes, because
but it has been proven on the Hansard that they did vote for it.
It doesn't really matter. I think what is important is that they are standing with their people. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind.
People pronounce themselves on this matter.
Or if something is hurting, if something is hurting your population, there's absolutely nothing wrong with rejecting it and siding with your people. Because after all, you have been elected by the people. And then the other aspect that I wanted to express my views on is once we pass legislations, but we don't implement them. The interpretation of legislation entirely depends with people out there. And in many cases, I have seen legislations that we've passed that are misinterpreted by the implementers. the emphasis is put on the wrong part of that legislation. And then the other elements of that legislation are left out for convenience. I see the same thing here, in that there are legislations that have been passed, but when you look at how it has been implemented on the ground by the civil servants or people on the ground, you realize the emphasis is on one particular aspect of it, which undermines the holistic implementation of that particular legislation.
All right. Osotsi, you had something.
Trevor, you know, I've listened to my good friend Baya here.
Yeah.
And I want to correct him. One is that we must realize that we are not in the old constitutional dispensation. We are in the 2010 constitutional dispensation. And 2010 changed a lot of things. The way Parliament works with the executive and the other arms of government was changed. Because ideally, members of Parliament, whether senators or National Assembly members, their primary role is three things: oversight, representation, and legislation. It doesn't matter which party brought you to the House. That is your job. So you are supposed to do oversight. If you are in the government party, UDA, that you do it over the weekend. But in Parliament, you need to do oversight.
Yeah.
And that is where the problem is. Because Baya knows very well, the committees in National Assembly and even Senate, especially those departmental committees. In Senate, we call them standing committees. They are not functioning optimally because the chairs of those committees, first of all, they are not elected, they are selected. They will sit down, the executive will sit down and say, I think in energy, we need so and so. And then they will be called to State House and the names are read out. That so and so should be the chair of this committee, so and so should be the chair of this committee, and then they go back. That chair, constitutionally, is supposed to be the leader of that committee on matters oversight within that department. But you see, they end up now being surrogates of the CSS in the respective ministries. So they end up not doing proper oversight. And that's where we have a problem. And when he says that minority and majority or majority is just a parliamentary way of categorizing groups in parliament. But it doesn't take away your power or your role to carry out oversight. We have a problem. I happened to have visited one of the parliaments in this continent sometime last year. I visited Nigeria and I saw their parliament works differently from ours, because their parliamentarians, yes, they are from different parties, but when it comes to a matter that the people have said no, they reject it.
Okay. So it's okay.
For example, recently they had a motion whether to allow the Nigerian military to go to those states, Niger, Guinea, and Burkina Faso. And the Senate rejected the president's request. And they said, no, the people are saying no. We should not take our forces there. But what happens here in Kenya? You saw the motion to take our police force to Haiti. It was passed. Because
without debate.
Without debate. Just put the question, and then there, because they have the numbers, they put the question and the motion passed. Yesterday in the Senate, we had this water bill. Water bill which everyone knows that is unconstitutional and it is anti-devolution. Because we have fewer numbers, we were not able to manage them. They were whipped to vote yes. So we have a bill that is going through that is going to be challenged in court. So I think we are we as legislators, we need to carry out our role very well, because as Honorable Yusuf has said, we should be guided by Article 1 of the Constitution that vests sovereign power, the people's sovereign power in us. And if you look at the three arms of government, legislature, judiciary, and executive, the only arm of the government that is heavily elected by the people is the legislature. Executive, apart from the president and the deputy president, the rest are not elected. They are appointees. Judges are appointees. So the people are looking to parliamentarians to protect their interests. But when we have a situation where we go to parliament and we are there to protect our parties, we are there to say, like yesterday I had Kenya Kwanza senator say, this water bill is anti-devolution, but it is a government bill.
So it will pass anyway.
So let's just pass it. You see, that kind of, that's a problem.
I want to say
that is a big problem.
I want to say this to my friend.
1 minute or so that I
no, he's done. You know, he's yielded the floor. You see,
I'll give you which closing remarks was your
you see, I want to say this. You know, Soti was a very good member of the National Assembly, and now I think he's losing it in the Senate. You know, the Senate, the old people there, Eddie is in the wrong place.
Eddie is a young person.
No, I'm saying he's the wrong place. They have affected the way he. They have affected or such.
It is not constitutional that older people are the ones who put in the Senate.
I want to say this. I want to say this. You see, the art of debating is an art. You know, and how Parliament is crafted and how you win bills and don't win bills depends. I think one of the greatest leaders of majority was Aden Duale. And he once said that if he has government business and he needs to pass it, he'll use all his arsenal available to make sure it is passed, including, I think, another time when he locked members of the opposition outside so that he can pass what he wanted to pass. But I want to say this for a fact. This country suffers from Parliament suffers from one major problem: a weak opposition, a very weak opposition.
Which one?
Let me come. Let me come.
These people, you know, they have bought some of our members.
No.
They have bought some of our members.
Let me explain myself.
What houses?
Let me come to my point. Weak leadership, actually, weak opposition and weak leadership in the opposition. And that is where Kenyans are suffering. And I want to call upon the people who have been given the mandate by the people of Kenya to oppose or to sit in the minority, to do their job so that they can check government. Because if I have a bill and it comes to, yes, I have a responsibility to my people. And when I campaigned in my constituency, I campaigned on the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, which had a lot of these things that are coming in. And that's what I campaigned on. And when now a bill comes into Parliament, and that bill is aligned to that manifesto, which I went to the people and I told them, when we get into power as Kenya Kwanza, as UDA, we will have housing, we will reform NSSF, we will reform National Health Hospital Insurance Fund, we will do all these kind of things. And they said, oh, and we are giving you the vote on that basis of the manifesto that I sold. I come to Parliament and I have the National Housing Bill. And here people say that the people rejected. The people, when they elected me, they said yes to my housing bill. When they elected President Ruto, they elected him on the basis of his manifesto. So today, if President Ruto brings that bill, the housing bill, to Parliament, on which him and I campaigned, wait.
The manifesto did not talk about the
wait. You know that I said the devil is in the details. The problem is you don't read. Now, so if President Ruto comes to Parliament and says, oh, and we campaigned together. We agreed on a lot of the things. Here is the bill on the things that we agreed. Please pass it in Parliament. It becomes law so that we can implement what we promised Kenyans. As a member of the party on which we campaigned with the president, I have an obligation because it's the same thing that I agreed with him. Today, I can't come and say no. If the people in Gatanga, the MPs in Gatanga, did not agree with the president on taxation, they should not have been with him on the same party. They cannot come and reject on the things that they campaigned on together. Now, how does Parliament, why do we have Parliament now? We have Parliament and National Assembly to come and say, wait. We do not agree with the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza. And therefore, we will come to Parliament and convince the members of Kenya Kwanza to reject that through debate, through dialogue, through association within parliament, so that we give and take. We say, okay, that one will pass, that one will pass. But what happens in debate? I want to go back. You see, Osoti, you know that I'm one of the members of parliament who has tabled a dissenting report in parliament, where I've had a minority report when I was in the opposition. I brought a minority...
During
the 12th parliament. No. 12th parliament.
But opposition, that was your role.
Yes.
Well, as an opposition, that was your role.
You know, they can't come to TV. Wait, Eddie. They can't come to national TV and cry wolf, because they have instruments within parliament. If I do not agree with what a committee, with a committee's report, I have a right within my standing orders to go and write my own report, a dissenting report, and come and table it, and Speaker will agree with it. I did that in the 12th Parliament. I did not agree with the members who are being selected in the National Lands Commission. I was a member of the committee. I did not agree with the names that were coming in there. I said these people will run this national, we will mess National Lands Commission. I wrote a minority report. I presented it. It was voted on. It lost. But I made my point in Parliament. I had my say. Now, Osoti, instead of, when he does not agree in the committee, he starts accusing the chair. Parliament has given him power to go, and I do not agree with the chair. I want to table my own report. Let us see his dissenting report being tabled in the Senate, so that we know he has a position. But to come and accuse a speaker, and this is where we need to look at institutions. You know, the speaker is the holder, the symbol of unity within Parliament. If we start accusing speakers and start calling them names and coming to TV and discussing them, or that this speaker, this speaker, this speaker, this belongs to this speaker, this, we are killing Parliament. We need to protect Parliament, and the first thing we must protect is the speaker. I respected Speaker Muturi, even when I disagreed with him. I respect Speaker Wetangula, even when I disagree with him. When I respect Kaluma. He sits there as a chair or as a speaker, and he belongs to the minority. But when he sits there, I respect him absolutely, because he is the speaker. He's not a member of the speaker's panel. He is the speaker at that particular moment. And I absolutely respect him and his rulings. If, which other speaker? This one from Lagdera, the famous deputy, Farah Maalim. When he sits there, and you know how Farah is, sometimes he bullies you. But when he sits there on that seat, and he sees the speaker now, even when I'm deputy leader of majority, I will respect him absolutely. And I will not call him names or whatever, both inside the house or outside the house, as long as he is a speaker.
I
want to call, let me finish this. Let me finish. And I want to call upon members of Parliament and the Senate, when the speaker, whether it is Amason Kingi, whether it is Veronica, whether it is what, when they sit on that seat, they are not wearing any other color. They are speakers. They must be respected absolutely. And if Senate wants to spoil the legislative arm of government, they will start, calling those speakers names and all that, and that senator, can tell you, will disintegrate completely. And we do not want to get into that.
Hold on one second.
But I want to say this.
Let's hear from
I want to say this, that as a National Assembly and as Parliament, our roles for oversighting, for representation and legislation are key. In advancing this country forward. And I want to say, it is not what government will tell you. It is your conscience. Members of Parliament have lost something called conscience. To be truthful to the oath of office, and also to say, yes, I agree with my president, or I do not agree with him. But you cannot come and agree with him in Parliament, then go out there and play politics and say, I'm with you people, I do not agree with them. That is hogwash. Members of Parliament should stand by what the decisions they make. I, as Owen Bai, I will stand by the decision I make. If I make a decision in Parliament, I will stand by it. And I will not be swayed here and there for political reasons. I rest my case.
Yes, Yusuf, submissions on this issue before I bring in the legislators to make.
No, I think it is important to have a balance. I mean, there's absolutely no reason to either condemn the speaker or to condemn the majority or minority.
Yeah.
It's just that for our politics to function smoothly and efficiently, and for us to be a nation that is together, united, and working for a common purpose, we need to respect our constitution, and we need to give every member of parliament the respect and the role that they have in parliament, and not turn into parliament into a minority and a majority versus a minority. It should be a house where we can all debate equally.
I love that.
And whoever wins the majority vote at the end of the day, so be it. That's what democracy is all about. But we should not have individuals or groups perverting the democratic process by pushing at whatever price their agenda and their political life.
Okay.
I think my name was called in the context that I'm a young senator sitting with old people in the Senate. I
believe that was in a light touch.
But also on a light touch, because the voter might not get the context of this. Apart from the fact that my older friend here is sitting in the National Assembly, I think Owen, I'm much better off sitting in the Senate with old people like Omogeni, Sifuna, Mudama, because he sees them as old, Kajuang, Uburu, than sitting technically with the young boys like Sudi, like Didmas Baraza, like Dijopevu and yourself. Because the reason why I'm saying this on a light touch is this. When our people go to vote, they are aspirational, Owen Baya.
Yes.
When the people of your constituency go to vote, they look at some aspirations in you to be able to go to parliament to represent their aspirations. And those aspirations, if they knew that in some contentious issue you could not be able to show up for them, they would rather leave you as a sycophant who can be in a village baraza somewhere instead of taking you to parliament. Because Owen Baya can tell you that on these bills that you're talking about, you're talking about supporting government on like the tax bill. If today we were to say that in this country when you have got those defining bills, and during those moments we don't vote in parliament, every parliamentarian is sent to a stadium in their village to go and vote in their village. You're going to be told that there's a screen, but your people are sitting there. Owen Baya courageously punch yes when you are in your constituency. Owen Baya will not go home. He will not vote. He's voting just because he knows that when he's here, he can hide behind the screen in parliament and vote against his people, and then find his way sometimes when things have cooled down and somehow manipulate his people.
Yeah. I'm not that kind of politician.
But that is,
I am not.
That is what your people are showing by your people eating their own words in parliament. Because I agree with Honorable Yusuf, who said here very well that he doesn't have a problem with any member of parliament who changes their mind. Because, anybody who doesn't change their mind, sometimes you can be wrong sometimes. But I have a problem with somebody who your people tells you from the beginning that this thing is hurtful. This thing is injurious to me. Don't pass it. Then you go ahead and pass it, and then come now and chew your words. That's the problem I have, and that's why I'm telling you, Owen Baya, that you cannot say that somebody like Ososti or myself are not reading bills. There is reading for the sake of reading, but also there's some reading for the sake of understanding. Ososti and I sometimes don't spend our time on some useless things that come from KK side, because as we speak right now, Owen Baya, as we speak right now, you just saw, and Trevor, I know that we'll get time to advance on this. You just saw what has come out of courts. That 600 people in KRA, the same KRA that we're talking about, are coming from 2 tribes. And I can tell you for a fact, from that court report, they are not from your tribe. You as a member of parliament should be concerned about this endemic permutation that if you are in government, and I think even Ruto and Rigiji should be concerned, because this tribal problem of being able to just employ members of your tribes in some key positions and negate other people in the entire public service sector. In fact, I want Owen Buyer, I want to challenge Owen Buyer to go and put a motion in the lower house for a serious audit of the entire public service of Kenya.
But you see,
in terms of looking at...
there is an entire audit on page 5 of the
Wait, this is not from Parliament.
Yeah,
okay?
Entire
this
audit
is not commissioned by Parliament.
That's the response to my question.
Yes. You know, that's
It's from Parliament, so it's a response.
Yeah, it's a pro-Parliament thing, but as a representative, let me tell you when buyer.
Yes.
One of the biggest problems that we have had with the same kind of sycophants, people following the president, is also this tribal notion that when somebody is in power, it's the right time for their people to eat, it's the right time for their people to get tenders in government, it's the right time for their people to occupy positions in government. Therefore, you end up having a public sector that, number one, is incompetent, number two, cannot be able to deliver on service that people want, and number three, is the most corrupt, because it just becomes difficult for people in power to punish their own when they do things that are wrong. And these are the things that we want parliamentarians like Owen Buyer to be able to talk about. The same way, like Ososi and myself, strongly believe that our role in Parliament today, because we find ourselves in the Senate, there is no any important thing today in Kenya than protecting devolution. And this is good even for the president, because he's not going to be president for life. In 5 years, or if God helps him, because right now I think that KK is standing on a very serious slippery ground, but if God helps him, he serves for 10 years. I can assure you, Trevor, that after 10 years, President Ruto will look back and ask himself, for my community that I love so much, for my region that I love so much, what is the one gift that I left them with? Mm-hmm. The gift would not be that he left some people in KRA that are working in KRA. The gift that he will have left his people with, that will be equitable gift, is the fact that he protected devolution to the extent that resources and power are guaranteed to go to his people in the villages, and are guaranteed to go to Owen Buyer's people in the villages, and also his people in the villages, and Raila's people in the villages, as well as educate. So these are ideas that we must hold as parliamentarians, despite the fact that some of us feel good when we praise the president and also eat from the State House more than we're eating the
Yusuf,
I am a member of the Committee for National Cohesion and Equal Opportunities.
Yes.
And we do regular updates, and we do presentations, audits to Parliament regularly.
Yes.
And there is a serious problem of multiple violators of our Constitution and our rules in terms of equal opportunities.
Yes.
And the Kenya Revenue Authority is one of the extremes. It's reckless. It is bad for this country. It doesn't serve the ruling party nor the opposition. And the reason why we want to have a balanced and equitable national employment system is because it's good for the stability, security, peace and security of our country. At the end of the day, when you have a country with equality, that country has a better chance of having peace and stability in the longer run.
Yeah.
And it doesn't serve the government or the ruling party to tolerate this kind of recklessness. It's not good. And people who preside on organizations like KRA should not be in office if that is what they have done. It's unconstitutional, it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you are planting the seeds of discord and discontent if you behave the way we are behaving by giving more positions to people from 1 or 2 or 3 ethnic groups. We have to have our national organizations should represent the face of Kenya. And I think this is good for us. And Kenya Revenue Authority is just one faulty organization, but there are many other national organizations that are in the same boat.
From the committee that you sit in, what are the facts? Is it simple that appointments are skewed depending on who is in office?
Extremely so.
That's a fact.
Extremely, it's a fact.
It's a fact.
But is it good for those people in office?
It's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
Because how does it serve the stability, the security, and the cohesion of this country?
In fact, there's sometimes that the Kenya Revenue Authority used to be called Kirinyaga Revenue Authority. That's what I like to
Ed is a young man, but he has a problem.
First of all, I want to tell my friend Buyer that yes, I was a very good legislator in the National Assembly, and I'm even a better legislator in the Senate.
Talk shop.
What I can say for now is that I think there is need to have an independent audit of Parliament, because the trajectory we are taking as a Parliament is not going to serve the interests of the people. I know my friend Baya has tried to explain things here, but there is a problem that needs to be addressed. Even deep down his heart, he knows there is a problem. The Kenya Kwanza regime has every right to implement their manifesto, but they can implement their manifesto without interfering with the freedoms, without doing it in a constitutional manner. They can still do it. For example, the housing. Housing generally is a good thing, but the problem is this housing levy thing, because no one expected it, because even in their manifesto they never made any reference to housing levy. In their manifesto, the running theme was bottom-up economic transformation. But you see, the policies they are coming up with and they are pushing Parliament to pass are not resonating with that theme of bottom-up economic transformation. Because when you say you want to tax poor farmers at home there, you want to tax them for their farm produce, I mean, you are supposed to empower the people at the bottom. But instead, you are making the people at the bottom suffer even more. So all in all, I think Parliament has to stand out. Parliament has to understand that they are there to represent the people. They are not there to represent the leader of the nation or the political party. It is the people. Yeah. That is the most important thing. Okay. And when he talks about weak opposition, you know this is dishonest, Trevor, because the same Kenya Kwanza, they are the ones who have bought members of Parliament from Azimio. They have enticed them.
Because they're weak.
The entire Jubilee.
They're weak enough to be.
The entire Jubilee. Entire Jubilee, which is on the other, which is Azimio legally, they have moved to the other side. Some members of ODM have been enticed to go to the other side. So when they come here and say weak opposition, which weak opposition? I believe the opposition is doing its role, but the government, Kenya Kwanza government, is not interested in a strong opposition. Okay. They keep on derailing the opposition every step. Okay. Because what does he expect us to do? They have bought our people. Does he expect us to fight in Parliament? Okay. so that we prove we are a strong opposition.
Okay, let me bring up the feedback.
We are there to protect the interests of the people.
No, let me bring up the feedback, then I'll give you all.
Why don't I do my closing remarks? Yes. I want to say this, Trevor. One, I do not agree with what happened at KRA. Yeah. Okay. That is not Kenya. That is not constitutional. And those people who orchestrated what happened at KRA should be punished by the law. It was wrong to do what they did, and I say that as Owen Bayer, and I will not one day come and say I'm sorry I said that. Yes, I've said it very clearly. What they did is wrong. This is Kenya. Everybody, every tribe must have an opportunity. Secondly, I want to say this. Even when we make that noise, and I can see it's a Kikuyu Kalenjin civil service, I look at that this headline. I think it's a bit on the extreme, because this country actually, there's a law of proportionality. And I like the person who presented this data. He gave the population of the community and the members that are in the civil service. Now, if you look at the data there on page 5 of the nation, the Kikuyu in this country they have given the population, they're 8 million. Okay, they have 52,000. The Kalenjin are a population, they're 6 million. They have 43. The Luya, where my friend comes, and they want to run away from the fact that there are very many in the civil service. The Luya are number 3, if you look at that data, and which is very important. They're 6 million. They're 29,000 in the civil service. The Luo, which is, I think, the 4th in population, they're 5 million. They are 29. Okay, you look at the numbers. Look at the Kamba. They are 4 million. okay? They are 22 million. So when you actually look at this and say it is skewed towards this, also, I wouldn't want to be a leader in this country where I oppress the majority because of, the feeling that, there are many. There are many even in terms of population. And therefore, if there are many in terms of population, what do you expect the civil service to look like? I think this is an important thing that needs to come out. So when people are flagging out figures, and when Eddie, who is an economist, but I thought when I said last time he's a pseudo-economist who does not understand a lot of things, he needs to look at, he says there are many in the civil service, but he also needs to tell us proportionally what would you have expected if there are many in population, what would you have expected for them in the civil service? Okay. Yes, if the lawyers are many, as a Mijikenda, the Mijikenda, we are 2 million in terms of population, 2.4 million, and we are 8,000. But
you're fine with that?
No. Listen to my point. Listen to my point. Listen to my point. Listen to my point. Okay, listen to my point. So, but if you go to the Kamba 4 million, they are 22 million, and if you look at yes, so it's very important. It is very important that also as we flag out statistics, I do not want to oppress the Kikuyus. Just because there are many in the civil service, there are also many in terms of population compared to my tribe. The Luos are many. In fact, I should be telling Eddie, why do you have more Luos in the civil service than the Mijikenda? If we want to follow up that. Okay. Because they have a higher population. So I would want to respect that because they have a higher population, they would have more people in the civil service than the Mijikenda, because that is how the nature of things are. You look at the Somali. Look at the Somali, because my friend is here. The Somali are 2 million, 2.7, and they're 6,800, So I would like also Kenyans to look at things from a proportional perspective, objectively. But I want to say this last, Trevor, if you allow me. There's one thing that has happened in this country which is very good and very beautiful, and I love it. When the president introduced the free visa entry into this country, it has transformed tourism completely in this country. And I want to thank the president, I want to thank the PS, Professor Bitok. Yeah. What he has done is something that is silent, that people, these politicians will not notice it. But when I go to my constituency today, my hotels are full. Okay. And if I ask, there are over 300 Kenyans now have, foreigners who have been in this country, higher than last time where there was only 150, now we have. So I want to say this. This country is on the right stage. Okay.
This report is my response.
It is your response, yes. Actually, I'm happy.
I wanted to comment on it.
Yes.
You know what he did? He just gave the statistics, counties and national government. Yeah. My question was national government.
This
representation.
One is, just look at
he
it.
He left out.
This issue of...
just look at it.
The question is not...
I have already discounted.
Total population, 2019 census.
Sawa, the question is not national government. Yes. Representation of
at the national government.
But this is national government.
No. Here
integrated.
This is national.
All right, like I mentioned, it's time for cooking tips now. Thank you so much.
Always be a not the fact that they are majority. Because I'm elected by predominantly Kikuyu neighbors.